Okay, demonstrational video part one of Viking hard bag installs. I imagine any of the Viking bags that would be the same for a 2006 Harley Davidson Sportster 1200. It's a custom XL 1200C, probably similar for the other Sportster models. I would imagine on up through, I don't know, 2017 or something, so 2004 up to fairly newer models. The first thing I've done here is removed the shock bolt right there. It's a T50 torque with a 3/4 inch nut on the back of it. Don't really need to hold the nut too hard. One of the issues I had initially was finding the right jacking point. So you can see here there's kind of like two cross members in the tubular frame. I've tried one of the back cross member at first, and because of the angle and the flat surface of my jack, it just didn't work out well. It kind of slipped. You can actually see some kind of paint hanging there from scratching a little piece of paint, or maybe it's just some road grime. But yeah, this is in between the back brake master cylinder and there is where I found the best point to be. The front wheel will want to come up on this particular model. Maybe different Sportsters it won't. But as you loosen the and this was the harder of the two to get out. For me, I guess maybe because of the angle it's on, but anyhow, I had to kind of like rock it back and forth. And then finally, once I got it out, the swing arm dropped. And that's the whole purpose here, is to get clearance. I did one of these about 10 years ago with some factory Harley hard bags, and I never dropped the rear end. I didn't know to then, but it's getting access to the back nuts back here, as well as, you know, when you want to run, you're gonna have to run your blinkers. I'm gonna eventually move them back here. I had a nicer kit back in 2011 when I did this with an 04. It was a laid back, the factory Harley. It's like 80 bucks, so I just didn't want to sport for it. But the plate kind of laid back, but you're getting these blinkers off of here and back to here. But I've got a little bracket that just mounts here that came with these bags. But all right, we'll do another video once I start moving through the process a little more. I'll come back, or I'll just pause the video here as I start working some more. But yeah, getting those shocks unbolted for this model was a little bit of a clench factor because of the shifting around of the jack and not figuring out where to put it. Don't want to drop this 600-pound bike, right? All right, part two. I got the two bolts out that hold this cover on, and just a side note, part of what these bolts I have are actually they got a sissy bar quick release attachment to it. The back bolt didn't have a nut on it. The front bolt had a nut, a half inch nut on the back, which I'm using one of these wrenches on, and they are, at least for my bolts, these I think these are a factory Harley for the sissy bar. They were 3/16 X key. One of the problems I'm running into now is trying to get the blinker off, because it is also holding everything on. You may not be able to see very well up in there. Yeah, I don't have a light on here, but there's a 1/2 inch nut on the back, and as I'm turning that nut, it just basically unthreaded the blinker. Sorry. It basically unthreaded the blinker, so when I turn that nut, it's just spinning in there. And this thing can slide off. The wire's holding it. There's a little prong in there that's holding the wire, which is running back to this tail light. I apologize, this video is a little, it's hard for me to watch on the screen and what I'm doing, but I've got to undo a prong under here with a flathead, what I'm going to attempt to do to relieve slack on this wire. If I can slide this off here, I think once I get this off, there's maybe a nut or something under here that's holding this thing, because I can't pull this through. But yeah, a little bit of a fun thing working on a Harley. Just grew up working on Jap bikes, and then there's a local guy who had a motorcycle shop. He refused to work on these bikes, but it's American classic. What can you say? All right, next video coming up shortly. I forgot to mention it's a 1/2 inch nut on the back of here too. So the same nut you're holding here will hold here, but it's just going to get you to this point. This is just a video trying to show you what we're dealing with here. So we got that 1/2 inch nut, and right above it you can see there's a wire that's coming back here to the tail light, brake light. But there's a little prong holding that wire down to a fastener right in front of that nut. I'm going to try and get that prong pried up so I can give a little slack to this wire so that I can then maybe pull this piece off, because it's loose, but I can't get it off here with all the tension on that wire. Hopefully I'm not hurting that wire. But then once I get this all slid off, I'm thinking I'll find another nut or something under there so I can get this stem out. Okay, hopefully you can see this. Get focused up there. I got a flathead underneath the wire. Just kind of trying to bend that prong out, as I think I'm doing. Anyhow, and so that way I can get the wire free. And then do this while I'm recording. We'll get the wire free from there. Probably should also, at this point, take off the tail light lens, and there might be a clip. I can unplug it, give it some more slack. Yeah, so 2 Phillips screws holding on the tail light lens, and then once you get in here, you can see, sure enough, there's a little plug here for the blinker. Yeah, so you take a little flathead, and there you can see the prong on that side. You just poke it through that hole, and it'll let that plug clip release. And sure enough, I was able to get enough slack in there. You can see this whole piece is coming out. And as I presumed, right underneath there, there's a nut holding that stem on. So it's a 5/8 right there to get off. Then you got a 1/2 inch nut on the other side. But this is just showing you. So I got that cover off, and I worked it around the top of the shock. One video I saw, the guy removed the top shock, but he was putting quick release bag mounts on. I took the bottom off, which is apparently what the Harley instructions say to do, because you're not going to be able to put the top back on once you mount the bags. But I got the blinker plug here, doesn't want to feed through the hole, so I guess I gotta probably pry it apart or something to get it through there. Alright, we're working with Union Trade Secrets here. I've seen other, or at least several other Sportster videos. I don't know if this is just an 04 to 06 issue. I'm not sure how I did it back on my 04. Maybe I just cut the wire and spliced it, but this clip was put on likely after the wire was fed through here. This hole is not big enough for the clip to make through, so I've been futilely working for about 10 or 15 minutes trying to get the I was able to open up there's like little tabs on the side. I could open it and expose. I can try and do it with my thumb right quick on video. Yeah, there we go. So I got it open, but that still yields me nothing. Somehow these little guys are fed in here, and can't get the camera to focus for you all back. But anyhow, in there you can see the clips. I've been feeding different prying tools down in there to try to release something with no avail. I've taken some pliers and actually contorted it a little bit to contort the front of it. This little prong is the prong you use to release it from the tail light, but yeah, union trade secrets. I don't know if it was like once you push it in, it never comes out, but it's a shame that Harley Sportsters are even. I didn't want to do it, but I had no other foreseeable option. I just went ahead and cut it. I mean, I could have trimmed back the wire here more, but I will slice those, solder them, heat shrink them, try and get them watertight. I just did not want to lose the option of being able to plug them back in here. I got a little grass on there, but a lot of dielectric grease in there, which is nice, but I want to be able to maintain this blinker and plug it back in there. There's kits you can get on Amazon, like $30 for a new taillight, LED taillight that has integrated blinkers. I like to be seen as much as possible on the bike to be safe, because I'm more concerned about other drivers and what they're going to do and not see me while they're texting on their phones. So having these bigger blinkers that are always running out is just more lights to cause me to be seen. So I want to keep the factory blinkers, mount them up on that rear end bracket that Viking bag provides. But yeah, I don't know if it's, again, just an 04 to 06 issue, if 07 they resolved it, or maybe 08 they resolved it, but these clips, I mean, without me destroying this plug, there was no way I was going to get it past this hole, or without me boring out that hole more. So a little disappointing. I don't think Viking gave me anything to cover this. I mean, the bag is going to cover the whole thing, but I think my Harley kit I had 10 years ago actually had maybe some little cover cap or something there. But oh well. Splice and solder, and the other side I'm not going to take nearly as long to try and figure out how to open this guy up, because it is it's probably like a one-time thing. They push them in there and they're never meant to be released and removed. But I tried pushing on the inside. There's a little edge where you can fit a flathead in there, and pushed against the plug, but I was going to mess up the metal in there, so oh well. So this is the frame brace piece, and I've just kind of fed it in there. I will say, having had the Harley bags 10 years ago, I don't really remember what they were like entirely, but for the money, I think that these bags are a much better product. This is, I think, the Lamellar or something Viking bag. I'm kind of a pet peeve about brand names. I mean, Harley's one that's been around for a century, right? So that one I don't mind showing off. But I try to take this plate off, and I'm not sure if it's glued down. There's a couple screws, 3 holding the bottom piece of the hinge and 3 holding the top, and then 2 more screws that seemed like they could be for that, and they were kind of a pain to back out, but I still couldn't pry it loose. So I don't know if it's screwed and glued, but interestingly, it's going to cover up this back reflector, and that reflector is like the identical size to the Viking bag logo. So I'm still contemplating trying to rip this out, and maybe if I can inlay that reflector, that would look really nice. Again, from my earlier video about the blinkers, I want to be seen on the road. Too many people, cagers, going to take me out, but this thing is not firm in here. I could put some nuts on the back to tighten it up. One thing I asked Viking bags, and they couldn't give me a straight answer on. I have these guys, which used to be in here, and these are for the quick release sissy bar mount, and I said, hey, do you have long enough bolts that I could still include this spacer? And I think the bolts are long enough. I got plenty of space back there, which I'm not quite sure how thick those bags are, but it could be a concern that I'm gonna protrude too far and hit my tire, meaning I have to cut those bolts. But one thing I want to possibly do is cut this spacer down. I mean, it's not quite as, there's like no thickness there, but I want to get the bags as flush to the bike as possible, and having that extra space there is going to prevent that, as well as if I want to come along and put this guy in here, which it's going to help that I have the longer bolts, but this one is even fatter. So I definitely think I'm going to take a hacksaw and trim that down. And even if I didn't have those spacers, that might be something you might want to consider doing just to get the bags to go flush. I couldn't figure out, now I do. This thing was kind of sitting in here wonky. It's like keeps pushing down, but I realized I got this spacer backwards compared to this one, so I'll need to fix that. But one tip, you can, if it says to use 2 people, which I still intend to do. I'm going to ask my wife to help. But if you paint the tops of these with some house paint or something, it'll help when you go to place the bag up onto it to mark it. I mean, the instructions are very rudimentary and don't give you tips on how to do it best, but you basically want to get this angle kind of right. You may even decide to come back a little bit, give the shock some space, as well as this. If you angle it more, you're going to support more of the bag's back end, as opposed to having it closer up to the front of the bag. You'll center it more in the back, or have it centered more in the main piece of the bag. Okay, I went ahead and got these 2 top bolts nice and snug. They're 1/2 inch bolts and nuts. The quality is pretty good. One was longer than the other, and this one's got some stamp numbers on it, you know, kind of giving you the hardness. This one's just nothing, so it's probably not as strong. But I will say the hardware kit with this thing is quite adequate. There's some aluminum spacers, a big steel spacer. Some of these I won't use. Lots of lock washers, lots of flat washers. These are for the other side. This plate, you can see this, yeah, heavy duty steel. Wish it was aluminum, but yeah, I think I want to cut that because, again, just the way it's going to make the bag sit off. But I'll just try to demonstrate lining the bag up. But I got some house paint. I'll just dab the head of the nuts, the bolts with the paint. But so yeah, there's the bag, kind of just rough put up, but you can see covered up the reflector. You come in here and you can see there's quite a bit of space here, and I don't know that that's all necessary. There's a little bit of flex there, but clears this shock quite well. I could probably come forward with a little bit more. I mean, it's got quite a bit of room there in between the shock. It's almost kind of ridiculous. These brackets, I think, just need to be trimmed. I'm kind of wishing I didn't have the sissy bar. So just an update. It's been a couple days. I let this project sit for a bit. Other priorities took place. This turn signal relocation kit is probably the most challenging piece. One of the things I didn't care for is having these exposed wires here. The Harley kit that I had a decade ago, it laid the license plate down a little bit more, and it was all kind of chrome in one piece of, like, a frame, a big chrome frame, a big thick thing, and it just kind of mounted a little bit nicer. But I also wanted to, like, tuck the wires down in here, and then I had to drill this hole. So you got to take this bracket off, drill the hole. There's a hole in the fender, but there's no hole in this piece. So I drilled that hole. My right blinker is going to come up short with me tucking the wires the way I did. So that's my left blinker, and then my right blinker. Now they're going to feed to right here, so they're not going very far, but the right blinker's got to come over a little bit further. So I'm probably going to have to add at least a couple inches of wire to that, and that's where I'm at right now. I got the soldering gun out. I got just stuff all over the place. But I had to cut this guy in order to get it through the hole. But it's good that I didn't put it back on yet, because I never would have got it up through this hole right here. And I tried to make that hole as small as possible, just just big enough to get the 2 wires through, and it chewed up the outer conduit a little bit. But again, I'm just tuck the wires the best I can back there. You can't really see it. The only part they're really visible is right here where they come out of the bracket, and then I send it straight in behind the frame. But and you can see I also fabricated this piece. I cut because they come with a little bit of heft to them, and I found that there's obviously a slant here, but I've even been a little tempted to cut a little off of the other one. But one of the issues that I found, so this guy goes up on the front here, the bag just sat way off of the shock there, and it was kind of, and this was the reason. Now I'm pretty close to that shock now. Hopefully I don't rub, but I already marked one bag with the bracket, and you can kind of see how that's going to work out. I may just do another rough end, put it up again just to make sure I got the holes where I want them. And then, as I understand it, I couldn't, for some reason, this guy got loose. You know, I tightened these 2 guys up real tight, and then tried to tighten these guys up so that when I took the bracket off, it maintained its position. Well, this bottom one maintained its position, but then I had to bring the bracket back up. It's just a pain getting my hand in underneath there. I don't want to jack the thing up so high and lean the bike so far over. But looking to get this project done because it's been making a mess in the garage. I had to use a cutoff wheel to cut this guy, but now I got the soldering gun out. As I said, I'm getting ready to solder these wires up. I think that turn signal relocation was just as much of a job as probably mounting these bags are going to be. And what I didn't mention, I was trying to get to a minute ago, lost in thought, is that once I get the holes lined up for this guy, what my understanding is you just take this bag and like put it on top of this bag with the bracket, just flip the bracket over and then line up your holes there. That way you're certain to have the bags evenly installed instead of trying to do the reinstallation all over again on the other side. Unless, of course, you got some sort of bent rear frame on the bike or something. Speaking of which, if you've never been in the underside of a Harley fender, there is, so you've got this big heft of steel for the rear end, but there's also a steel bracket that goes through here, and actually this license plate mount screws to it, and it gives the fender the ability to not have any flex to it. So make sure you get all that bracket in there all lined up, and it's going to want to fall out of there when you take all this stuff off. But hopefully it gives you all a little bit better insight of what's going on, what this job entails. Again, I got the heat gun wasn't necessary. That was another little project, but I was using my drill as a cutoff, the cutoff wheel on the drill. You're probably going to want to trim down this bracket if you got the shot cut out mounts. Otherwise, it's just, the bag sits so far off of the bike, it was almost like not necessary to have the shot cut out. So, all right, I'll try and do one last video after this with it all complete and done. Thanks for watching. So I decided not to bother with extending the wire. What I just want to demonstrate here is the heat shrink tube. I got a smaller heat shrink tube on each individual wire. That is to insulate them from each other, because I kept them like right next to each other instead of maybe like staggering them. And then a larger tube on that piece to insulate over everything. This solder joint's going to be up in the tail light area, so it'll be out of any moisture, but just wanted to show what it looks like under here if I can. If I can get a video in there. So there it is coming out of the fender here, and it's just coming right on over. Now hopefully it's gonna hug tight enough. I wish I had like a little bracket like this guy here. This is part of that steel support I was mentioning, but this is there to feed the left turn signal through to keep it away from the tire. Certainly don't want the tire rubbing this wire open. I may see if I need to zip tie it, or it's gonna hold pretty tight on this side. It's going right to there, so there's not much space. But I don't know. I may look at it, but I don't think I need to. I was gonna add like an inch of wire, but I don't think I'm gonna need it after all. But maybe I'll add it, but I don't think so. All right, I found that there's two round hex head or Allen key bolts. They came with the license bracket kit, but I couldn't use them. They weren't long enough to fit these guys, but it gives me a consistent round surface and can get this thing centered pretty much. I tried this once, brought the bag up where I wanted it to mark off the mounts. Sorry I had the flash on there, so it's kind of sparkly, but I'm finding that when I pulled this guy off, and I was using the hex heads the first time, or the instead of the Allen head, I was using like a 6-point head. When I pulled this off, one of these guys stayed tight, but the other one, the angle moved, because I marked this guy, these two guys, on the bag, because this one actually slants in a little more, because again, I cut this guy down short, so it wasn't quite as long, so it didn't come up off the bike as much. But I'm gonna try and take some alcohol and clean these off, and then go at it again. You know, measure twice, cut once, so to speak. Measure twice, drill once. But yeah, these guys have a flat head on the back of them, and I just tried to wrench down, and you have to put some washers and such in there, because they're intending that you use two of these big flat washers, I believe, once the thing's all together, like one on the back of the bag, one on the inside of the bag. Sadly, all the bolts that they give you, these are the two other style. They're too long. I mean, I'm gonna have a lot of mass. But they give you these spacers. Now these are solid steel, probably weigh about 6 ounces. And that's gonna protrude on the inside of the bag too, which is a little bit of a disappointment. Now I could cut the bolt down, which I may do, but you know, I run the risk of cross-threading or something like that. But definitely a job for sure, and you know, if you want it done right, you're gonna have to take your time with. I do wish I could have a little bit more assistance. I might get my wife to try to hold the bag, but the picture on the website, and I recommend looking at which bike you're using. Like, I'd like to try to get the bottom of the bag nice and parallel with the top of the pipe. And this is 1200. The 1200 that they show in my picture is the one with the big fat front tire, and I've got a classic, and the classic they show is not the classic I have. I have to use the 883 to get an example of what my bag looks like on their bike. They, for some reason, put this blinker bracket up here, which then you're relying on the strength of the license plate and not really the bracket that is the Harley bracket. And plus it puts the blinkers up real high. I don't think I like that. I mean, I had the original Harley kit 10 years ago, and it was down lower. But all part of the process. I mean, this is a job, but hopefully if I get it all done right, it comes out looking spectacular, and save a bit of money off the Harley bags and have a bit more storage space, and it looks well. Thanks for watching. Okay, I got the two bags matched up because I already made holes. One of the tip number one, something I've read in another video or watched in another video, is, you know, try to line the bags up. I'm having a little trouble getting them perfectly lined up. It says put on a horizontal surface. When the tops are open, they don't want to stay upright, so I'm having to like try and prop them against something. I did have them on top of each other, like sandwich like this on this piece on the ground, and then this one on top stacked on their side. And I was trying to lift this lid up, and I'm blowing out some of the dust that I made from the first one, and ended up getting the lid slammed on my head. That didn't feel good, but I'll just show you the holes I marked off. I put the bracket on here, and it says to use a 1/4-inch drill bit. That's a joke. I would not try to put the screws through those 1/4-inch holes without having tapped them. I ended up going up to, I don't know, it was like a 1664 something. Ended up 9/30 seconds, and still with a 9/30 seconds, it was like I was tapping it out. But with a 1/4-inch, it felt like I was going to crack the plastic. Now I've got the leather covered ones, so it's going to create a little bit more of an issue for me because there's like, it doesn't make the hole perfect. You can see these are the ones I put the screws tightened down through. These I've got to do. In hindsight, I kind of maybe wish I would have made smaller holes for those because the brackets are smaller, but I guess it doesn't matter as long as I can sandwich it down good. But now I'm just working through the challenge of trying to get the two bags to line up perfect next to each other, so that I can get the holes identical and the bags are even on the bike. But it's kind of what I'm aiming to. I might take a clamp. I think that's what I'll do. Try and clamp them together so I've got a perfect match. And then the next challenge is going to be fitting a marker tip through that hole, and especially the hole in the bottom. But I think it should work out. This may be the last video before you see them mounted. Hope so. Thanks for watching again. Okay, got the bag mounted. Pretty pleased. Haven't lowered the bike yet, but got the bottom shock mount just accessible. So hopefully I got enough clearance here. I mean, they say you need an inch between the top of the pipe. Hopefully I got it up high enough. It's gonna be tight, but I don't know if the pipe gets that hot, but that leather bag, plastic, could melt. We'll see. I'll have to keep an eye on that. A little concerned about that, but go ahead and show you what I'm working with here. The bolts are too long, so I got this handheld like hacksaw. I'm just going up in there and cutting notches in the bolt, and then you can see the one further in the back there. It's not getting in focus, but kind of back where I'm pointing my finger at. I just don't want the bags, the bolt head. I don't want a big spacer on there. But yeah, you use you get 8 of these big washers and 4 of these small washers. So the big washers, I put one on the front and back side, and then the small washer, you've got that black plate that's part of the mounting bracket. But pretty tight. Here on the shock, it might even be touching this top piece. I might be able to fit a playing card in between it. But that's what I want. I mean, I got the shock cut out because I want the thing to be hugged as close to the bike as possible. I mean, you can see overall it's pretty tight. I remember the Harley bags, and this is loose right now a little bit. The Harley bag, I tightened it down, but it's showing a little gap. But the Harley bag had spacers in them too, not quite that much space. Maybe it's near the front, but much meatier bag, and get more space. It doesn't leak. I didn't have the other ones that drew rain enough to know, but I've heard that the OEM Harley bags, which are real leather, these aren't real leather, but those Harley bags did leak. I've seen somebody do like a Street Glide bag on a Sportster, which looked okay. They had to make some custom brackets for it, and I think they actually had part of the like a bar coming from the bottom of it over to the passenger peg bracket or something. But pretty much done here. Just need to mount the other side. I'm also going to cut those bolts. They did come with several lengths of bolts, like maybe 6 of these or 4 of these, can't remember. 2 of them I ended up using on the blinkers for the These are the guys that came with the tail light bracket or Brinkle bracket, but they weren't, I don't think they were quite long enough, so I think I had to end up using these on the blinker. And then two of these extra long ones. These are my original bolts, and I actually had a sissy mount bracket, and I had written to Viking prior to buying these to see if I'd be able to get a long enough bolt that I could put this spacer in there if I wanted to maintain my sissy bar, quick release sissy bar, and they said they couldn't give me that information. They didn't know. But anyhow, yeah, overall I think I'm good. I did intentionally bring the bag close to that when I was doing all this, because I wanted to see a little bit of the top of the fender. I don't want to get the bags too high. Again, I would suggest looking at the Viking webpage for your model, because they show the bags mounted on the models, but sometimes the Sportsters you got to mess around. Like they didn't have it for a 1200, they had it for an 883 custom. But plenty of space right now. I don't think these pipes get too hot, but I'll have to again keep an eye on there. But thanks for watching. Hope this video has been helpful for you. Overall, I've heard one guy who bought some Viking bags, not this exact Lamellar model, but say if he had to do it again, he wouldn't. I don't know that I would say I wouldn't. I will say it was very involved. A lot of little custom details, which I'm still ironing out, like just cutting the bolts. But I have a certain passion about, you know, working on my own bike, and it's almost therapeutic for me. So getting everything fine-tuned just the way I want it and taking my time doing it, it's kind of an idiosyncrasy of me, you know, a pickiness of me, but then the job I feel has been done to my satisfaction, and hopefully, you know, it's going to stand the test of time. So, you know, I could have slapped these bags on here a lot faster. And if I had to do it again, I'd probably be more proficient. But, you know, I don't regularly do this. But if I was like an installer, maybe, you know, working on a bike is not your thing, and this video's helped to determine for you that this is something you want somebody else to do for you. But I am pleased with the quality of the bag. It's got a nice little lever here to latch it. I do like that I can leave them unlocked and it stays closed. I do like that the same key operates both bags. Those are some things I think Viking improved upon over the years. Some of the videos I watched on these bags said, you know, I got two separate keys, one key for each bag, and they don't work on both bags. You have to use one key for one bag. And another thing I saw is you couldn't close the bag without having the lock on. So you had to put the key in to open it, and it was kind of like a lever or a latch. Once you unlocked it, then you could open it. And once you closed it, you had to lock it again in order to get your key out. So I think they improved upon those two things. Not real crazy about advertising for other companies. As you see, I got a Corbin saddle. I just got that recently. It was used, but I might Sharpie that black. The Viking bags, I'm going to attempt to take the red reflector that was on the fender, and it just covers it perfect. There is a little bit of a convection here, so I might have to heat up the reflector to get it to bend since it's a flat reflector. It almost covers that perfectly. I did attempt to try to take this plate out of here because it's like a plastic plate that I think is screwed on, but again, just particulars of me. Of course, I'm going to advertise for Harley. It's American classic. Been in the making for like 100 years, so there's no not advertising for them. But anyhow, thanks for watching. All right, install complete. Just wanted to show off the blinkers. So I really like having factory Harley blinkers. I mean, they illuminate the running lights, and then you know, it's just allows me to be seen. But the bags I'm pleased with overall. Again, I'll demonstrate. You know, there's a little lever here to open them. Nice hefty mechanism here. Seems sturdy. And then a key, which you can leave out. Now latches are locked. And same key for both sides. One thing I learned, the bracket, might be kind of hard to tell, but the bracket right here where my finger is does touch the belt guard, the chrome belt guard. So I've just put a little piece of rubber from an inner tube that got a hole in it for a bicycle. I've kept to use the rubber as gaskets here and there. I'll just put a spacer on there just so that it doesn't wear. I don't know if I need to do the same right here. The top part of the shock, you see I can't quite get that card through there, so it's the bag's kind of sitting on it. I don't know that it's going to be much of an issue. It may wear the bag, but in a spot you'll never see. I did have to end up using one spacer. I just didn't want to cut the bolt again. And here they provide lots of different spacers with this. There's a black plastic spacer on this left side because I just think the bolt coming through may, if I had a passenger on there, could potentially hit the edge of the tire. I don't know. This is all the hardware that's left over, including the two pieces of the mounting bracket that I cut off so that the bag again could sit closer to the bike. I left it wide back here, but cut it down thin right there because I don't like the bag sticking off the side of the bike. Now, I can't say for certain, but it almost looks like the right bag is closer to the bike because of this Corbin seat. Now this is the Corbin seat's fault though, I think, because Corbin, I've noticed, sometimes doesn't always make their seats perfectly symmetrical. Like this thing is closer this way than this stitch is over here. So the seat pan might just be off a little bit. I had to actually cut the front of the seat too. It was for a peanut tank, like an 883. And I bought the seat used, but I think the bag's working out well. I might do just a quick 1,000-mile review after I run them for a while, but overall real pleased with how they turned out. The video might not show it, but they look even on the bike, other than that thing with the seat. I think that's the seat's issue. Yeah, would I do it again? Sure. I was able to get these at a Labor Day discount, 25% off. Did not have to pay shipping, I don't think. I'm not even sure if I was taxed. I paid some fee. Maybe it was shipping but no tax. I don't know. It was like $386 or something like that total. And that's with, this is kind of an important deal, getting the turn signal relocation set up. It's not the cleanest looking thing, but it does the job. The laid back one that Harley made 10 years ago is nicer. I've seen one now, it's just like a chrome tube, which is for Harley, and it's not going to be as nice as the laid back one. But and just one last thing, I think I showed this in another video, but I intend to hopefully somehow affix the reflector here, and it's almost perfect. It's not quite the same angle slash cut, but I think it's gonna look nice. Get some it had triple M double-sided adhesive on it that I had to kind of tear up to get it off, but maybe clean it off, get another same amount or some triple M. I got some adhesive for trim and chrome adhesive, triple M, just glue it on there or something, and it'll keep me safer, at least more seen, more visible, especially at night from the side. And yeah, I think the bags look good. And another nice feature inside the bag is each side has a zippered pocket right here, so you can keep some credit cards or your wallet or something, keep it separate or something. It's a little dusty in the bag, from making shavings and such, but it tells, we got a couple labels here it's sewn in, the model. There's a final with a blank, maybe that's the installation date, I could put that. a Viking label sewn in. I mean, everything's stitched really well, a real robust. Looks like it might be stainless. You know, certainly want to make sure you clear that when you're mounting. You know, everything's beefy, and the excuse me, sorry. I mean, the top piece, it's all stitched real nice. Everything's, I mean, just real firm and heavy duty. I think these two screws, which were a pain to try to back out, I did on one bag. I think they might hold the label on. Somehow this label got a little boogered up. I don't know how. I kept them in the bags that they came in. They came in these pretty nice cotton bags, which you could use for something else, laundry bag or something. I don't know. One of them did have the stitching not fully good, but I mean, this was something that was unexpected. I didn't even think I was surprised when I saw that. I didn't know I was going to get those. But because it's such a process of taking the bag out, figuring something out, taking it back down. You know, I probably went back and forth on this thing. There's several hours. Easily, I probably, from start to finish, could have spent anywhere from 6 to 8 hours on this project in total. Plus, you know, I'm trying to video and document things that I think might be important. But during that time, I would occasionally put one of the bags back in the sleeve. I left the one bag unopened for a while and just worked with the right side. But I think I actually did okay on the pipe clearance. I thought it was going to be a little closer, but I've actually got like 2 inches there, so no worry about the heat. I did come very close to the bottom shock mount, which is what I wanted. I wanted to try and keep it, you know, I didn't want to expose the shock too much. This bag's supposed to hide it, but getting the washer past, you know, you kind of put the washer up first and then the bolt through. If you keep the washer next to the bolt head, it was kind of difficult to get through. But time will tell how I feel about the bags. But as of now, very pleased. Thanks for watching. Hope this has been helpful for you.